here. So we'll call the July 9th, 2020 work session of the Keystone Central School District Board of Directors to order. We will begin with the salute to the flag and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
which it
to the
stands,
republic
one
for
nation,
which it stands,
under God, indivisible, with
with
liberty,
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for all.
Okay, first item is the roll call. Mrs. Long?
Mrs. Donahay,
Here.
Mr. Elling, Mr. Johnston,
Here.
Mr. Koch,
Present.
Ms. Lynch,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Probert,
Here.
Mrs. Smith,
Here.
and Mr. Strauss.
Here.
8 members present.
Okay, thank you. I do not believe that we've had an exec session since our last public meeting, so I don't think I have one to announce. So with that in mind, we'll go into some presentations. We have 3 of them tonight. The first one is Return to School. Ms. Martin, would you care to present that one?
I would love to. We've been spending an awful lot of time on this topic over the last several weeks. What I'd like to do is share my screen with you. And show you that we've been working on the phased reopening of schools for quite some time. I had mentioned to you earlier earlier this summer, that we would be looking at a 4-phase process. From May through July, we've been working currently on research, communication, and planning. As you can imagine, that research works really great until more research comes out and more governor orders come out and things from PDE change rapidly. As some superintendents have put it, the earth's moving under our feet as we're trying to get ready for the phased reopening. But we're trying to be agile and be responsive and responsible for all of the information coming forward with regards to our roles with opening schools. We're currently in the process of collecting information from families about their choice of learning. And when we have that information at the end of July, we'll make final preparations for opening our schools as long as we stay in the green or in the yellow phase. And September 1st would be the first day of school for students. Then that would be in our flexible learning solutions, again, in the green or the yellow phase. And then phase 4 is our contingency plan. In the event that we do move into the red phase at some point, schools will be forced to close and all students will be in a remote learning environment. This is not a new graphic. I've shown this to you before. It's been pushed out to the public in many different forms through the media and email and postal mail letters. But basically, Keystone Central is looking at flexible learning solutions that give parents voice and choice for their individual students. And while we know that the majority of the people that we surveyed told us they were planning to come back to school with the learning precautions, there are still some folks who wish to learn at home. And what I can tell you right now is we have approximately 800 to date. 800 folks have answered the survey making a choice. And it's pretty consistent with what the initial feedback data showed us. But we still have quite a few more families. Because we have about 21% respondents at this point. With 21% respondents, we have 15% of our folks are choosing learn at home options, either through the virtual academy or through remote learning with our KCSC teachers. There's approximately 10% of those respondents who wish to come to school but work in an environment remotely, but with higher level precautions where everyone's wearing a mask and everyone is absolutely 6 feet or more apart. And there's a smaller number of folks in those hybrid learning areas. And then 75% of the rest of the respondents do plan to come back and learn at school in the face-to-face model. So based on the feedback that we got, and also based on the choices, the firm choices that folks will make, we have developed this safety plan. And I'm going to stop sharing this screen and go into another screen. So we will have there's two safety plans, one for our Keystone Central, the entire district, and then an additional one specifically for our CTC. Because we have two different AUN numbers, we have to submit two different plans. The plans are identical, minus anything related to elementary students will be taken out of the CTC plan. But the documents, the planning, everything is the same because we share a facility with the Central Mountain High School. So this is the draft plan. I'm sure that there will be more adjustments to this plan between now and the time we'll be seeking your approval next week. But one of the main things is we're adding this big note in red that we will follow all executive orders issued by the state and federal government. What that allows us to do is be flexible as those changes come about. We won't have to continuously revert back to approving and reapproving plans, because that catch-all statement kind of helps keep us in tune with the changes. I wanted to first start with the vision and the mission, because even in all of our flexible learning solutions, we're still planning to prepare citizens for the challenges and opportunities of the future. We're committed to developing these lifelong learners who are adaptable, resilient, productive, and of high moral character. So the only thing that's really different in our solutions is the environment in which students are learning. Our goals from the comprehensive plan are still in effect. We'll still be working towards achieving those goals and getting better in all 5 of those areas. And as we were planning for this pandemic reopening plan, there were 8 guiding principles that we were following to prioritize our decisions. They're not all in any particular order, other than number 1 is to protect the health and safety, the well-being of all of our students and staff. We wanted to make sure that we were considering the family challenges in a pandemic, which is why we came up with multiple solutions for families. We wanted to make sure that whatever plan we had was flexible enough to move right seamlessly into remote learning for all in the event of a school closure. We wanted to ensure that the curriculum is aligned with quality instruction and there's meaningful assessment for all students regardless of their choice. We wanted to think about equitable access to the planned learning experiences and technology in our plan, which is why we've been spending lots of our emergency funding on technology, a pretty good chunk of it. And we also want to make sure that we're personalizing and differentiating the professional learning for our staff. We also have to consider the psychological, social, and emotional needs of students and the adults who are in our community and in our schools. And we also have an economic awareness and a fiscal responsibility to the community. So just because we're getting some dollars to spend in relief doesn't mean that we should just haphazardly spend that money. We've been very thoughtful about how we want to spend that money to get really the most bang for our buck. The state has asked us to identify which type of reopening we would be selecting. We're selecting 2 of these boxes because of our flexible solution, which would be the total reopen with everybody and opting for the distance learning, but also a scaffolded reopening where we have some folks in distance learning and some folks are on site. I'm serving as the pandemic coordinator. Part of the requirement of the plan is to name that pandemic coordinator. and also identify folks in the stakeholder group who would be part of developing the plan, as well as responding if we have to make some decisions regarding some confirmed cases and so forth. So most of the people in this plan are district administrators, teachers, some board members have been on this plan, nurses, counselors, and I'm not going to read them all to you, and I'm sure we will add some as well. We've been in several conference calls with Michelle Alexander and Tracy Kennedy as well, trying to keep some things consistent across the community because we know that we share some families. And the health officials and the community leaders are all part of a weekly or bi-weekly meeting that I attend along with Mark Kondo regarding the Emergency Community Coalition, which has been led by Commissioner Angela Harding. So the next part of the plan involves the key strategies, policies, and procedures. And each of these sections of the plan have a narrative as well as a table breaking those pieces out. At this point, I'd just like to review the narrative of each of the sections for you. These responses, there were some key questions that were asked of school leaders as they were developing these plans to make sure that those were the components that were addressed. Deep cleaning has been completed for all buildings during the closure. Facilities will be cleaned and sanitized every day with an additional focus on all doors and high traffic areas. We've purchased bathroom fogging sanitizers, and all bathrooms will be cleaned once a day. All buildings have central air installed with fresh air ventilation at 25%. If it's not central air, there will be some portable window units at Bucktail, and also we're looking at solutions for Liberty Curtain. We're going to have hand sanitizers and wipes for staff and students to use in their classrooms and around the buildings and offices. All cafeteria and large group areas will have automatic hand sanitizer stations, and water fountains are going to be closed and converted into water bottle filling stations. Signage and safety protocols will also be posted prominently around the building. We've been working closely with Susquehanna Transit for some cleaning solutions for our buses and extra precautions. They'll also be fogged and wiped down daily. The bus drivers and aides on buses will be having facial coverings. Windows will be able to be down on buses when possible to improve the bus ventilation. A little bit more about that busing later and how we're seating students. And then again, this last statement on this section, you'll see repeated throughout all of the other sections, which would be the all staff members, including coaches and bus drivers, will be required to complete a safety training on COVID-19 and hygiene practices. And that will also involve a clear understanding of the health and safety plan that you approve. You can also see that there's lead individuals throughout this presentation and throughout this plan that will be responsible for the monitoring and implementation of the action steps. With social distancing and other safety protocols, we, again, already mentioning the multiple learning options for folks. What this is going to do is going to decrease the number of students who are learning in the traditional environment, which will lower the class sizes in the face-to-face environment. If we know that, and we know this from our families, that 75% of our students are not returning to the regular classroom, that means that class sizes are going to automatically be decreased, which is going to make it easier for teachers to spread students out and maintain the social distancing necessary. We have been modifying class schedules to reduce the number of students physically present. Once we know exactly who's coming back, we may be modifying some class schedules or teacher schedules to accommodate what we need to enhance or practice the social distancing. In our face-to-face classrooms, we can guarantee 3 feet distances between individuals, but we cannot guarantee 6 feet at all times. But in the hybrid learning spaces, we'll be able to seat students 6 feet apart, and we can guarantee parents that we can do that. That's really the main difference with the spread of the extra precautions between those two models. We're not going to use large communal spaces unless we absolutely need to. That would be such as the cafeteria. All cafeteria large group areas will have automatic hand sanitizer stations. Again, you see the building teachers will have hand sanitizers and wipes, and for students and resources. Again, the water fountains and the signage. Some additional precautions for student transportation will be loading buses from back to front, assigned seats, and in order of pickup. Siblings will be seated together when possible. Masks will be required in areas where social distancing or 6 feet apart is difficult. The bus driver and the bus aides will also wear masks or face covering. And again, the buses will be windows open and sanitized and fogged daily. We're going to limit the number of visitors and volunteers that come into our schools. We're looking for essential business only. We're going to have some plexiglass shields in place in areas where face-to-face interactions are unavoidable, such as at the school office or maybe some individual learning sessions. I'm picturing maybe the delivery of speech services where a teacher's sitting very closely with a student, and that plastic shield can also serve as a barrier so that the student can and the teacher can be without mask and be completing what they need to do with their speech drills. I'm gonna go to the next section. Hope you don't get dizzy. The monitoring of student and staff health. This is where we are going to be monitoring temperatures of folks coming into our building for students and staff. We're going to use touchless thermometers upon arrival. If there is a situation in which an individual does have a temperature of 104 or greater, we are going to have them escorted nicely, gently to the nurse's station for a second screening. We all know that there could be 100 reasons why someone would have a temperature. That doesn't mean that we should panic or, think that automatically there's a COVID outbreak. We just need to follow up with some additional screening. And the people who are best certified to do that would be our school nurses. The school nurses are going to follow up with the COVID-19 questions. And then from there, depending on what the answers to the questions are, that will depend on what the next steps are for the nurse. If someone does have a fever after the second check, and they are likely going to be sent home, but that's not any different than what we would have done pre-COVID. Of course, we'll do some other checking with siblings or other students that live in the same home because they may also be running a fever as well. So just a follow-up check on those students for, see if we can catch anything there. We'll follow up with quarantine and exposure recommendations from the CDC, which include some quarantining time, some testing, and so forth. Communication is going to be huge in this plan. We've been doing an awful lot of communication already about the school choices. We've been pushing things out to the media, posting on the website, doing video messages, as well as postal mailings. We're also following up for our most at-risk students for learning with teacher phone calls, possibly case managers contacting, reaching out to families, ESL teachers who teach students who speak other languages other than English, reaching out to them to make sure that they understand the communications and understand the school choices, as well as our nurses reaching out to families who have children that have high-risk health conditions or have a higher risk of severe illness. Again, there'll be the training as mentioned for all involved. The last section of this report would really be about second to last, other considerations. We had a safety committee meeting last evening and we discussed at length the governor's order and how we will handle the mask wearing. In our original plan, the masks were going to be optional in the at-school phase for students, but at that time, the recommendation was for older students. But now that the governor's order says for all students, that would be anyone above age 2, that's all of our students. And so we are going to have to be compliant with Governor Wolf's most recent order. I know that doesn't make all of our families happy, but it is something we're required to do. So all staff and students will be required to wear a mask or face covering unless they qualify for an exemption. There are some exemptions in the order, but again, we cannot ask for documentation as to why a student or a staff member would meet those requirements for an exemption. Anyone, though, without a face covering must maintain a distance from others of 6 feet. So if there is a student in the 3 to 6 feet classroom space, face-to-face, but they're not wearing a mask, then we're going to need the teachers to maintain the 6 feet of space and distance for those folks. Again, parents will have the option to choose the best learning environment for their child based on their health needs and their educational needs. Again, the communication, making sure that everybody understands the difference between those learning options is key. I know that myself, along with several other administrators, have been on the phone with parents and discussing further details and trying to answer as many questions as we can. We're going to continue to do that throughout the month of July, and I'm sure that as we get closer to school, more questions will pop up as well. We're going to also have frequent hygiene practices and hand washing encouraged in the elementary classrooms. Typically there are sinks there. Most of them can wash their hands right in their classrooms. And for secondary students, we'll be taking advantage of scheduled breaks and times for students to practice that good hygiene. We're also going to make sure that our substitute teachers or substitute staff members are also trained on our plan and COVID-19 issues. The training is going to be provided both virtually and in person. This is more about the learning options and using our support staff to support students. And another key thing that we've been doing with some of our funding is we would like to request the addition of a crisis counselor and a social worker in order to support the families with social and emotional wellness at home and at school. The district would also use our current counseling staff and school psychologists to support these families in collaboration with community agencies. The next part of this plan talks about the professional development. Obviously, we have the COVID-19 training and the reopening safety plan. Our coaches have already been trained on the COVID-19 education training, thanks to Mr. Bidwell and those coaches, his staff, and our athletic trainers. We're also providing some significant professional learning options on digital learning platforms on Google Classroom and Schoology for all of our teachers. This was one area that our teachers shared with us that it was a need for them in going back to school. They wanted more training on these platforms. In the event that we do have to all go remote, all of our learning is in the same platform. It's just instead of learning at school, we're all learning from home. There is some significant need to learn about trauma with trauma that our students and families face on a regular basis. And as school personnel, we need to understand that and how to be responsive to the needs of our students. And in general, we'll be also just providing a lot of resources to everyone regarding overall wellness. And there are some very good resources on the CDC website that will be providing active links and FAQs to folks. And this is all about the communications. A lot of that I've already talked with you about. The FAQs, we have a whole part of our website devoted to the reopening and all of our information. We'll update that every few days. And then this is really the summary, and according to PDE, this summary is the only part that has to be posted on our website, but I think it would behoove us to post the whole plan. And each of these columns on the right is really just a reiteration of what's already been stated this evening. And the final page is the affirmation that this board would approve this plan. And we're hoping that you will approve this plan next week so that we can submit it to PDE and move forward with our reopening phases. At this time, I'd like to entertain questions from board members and any discussion from board members and feedback as well. If there's something in the plan that you don't think is there that should be there, this is a great time to share that information with us.
Is there any member of the board that has questions?
Yes, hi, this is Elizabeth. Thank you for everyone who's put all this together. It's a monumental document. Just a quick question, and no one's looking for an answer right now, because like you said, things are continually evolving. But in the future, it'd be nice to know, like, how will or does the district supply the handheld thermometers, the face masks, the face shields? Are the face masks disposable? Are they one use only? Are they washable? And then how would that be policed? Would a teacher be 100%? I mean, would it all fall on their shoulders? Again, I'm not looking for a quick response now, but maybe the committee could let us know those answers.
Well, I do have some of those answers for you now. We did purchase fabric face coverings that are actually red for Bucktail, some blue for Central Mountain, and some white for Central Office, district-wide. They all have a hashtag KCSD Pride on them. And the reason that we opted for those washable face covers for staff is because we are going to provide each staff member with 3 masks. They'll be responsible for washing and maintaining their own masks. We wanted to do that because we think that for some of our younger students and also for school safety reasons, we wanted to be able to identify staff quickly, even though they have a face covering on. We also have upgraded our badge, ID badge machine, and we'll be printing new ID badges. So staff will be required to wear a mask as well as their ID badge, so that we'll be able to make sure that we don't have any intruders or people that aren't in the school available in this, walking around. We will also provide disposable masks for everyone. Everyone being staff, we are not providing masks for students. They're expected to provide their own face covering. And then as far as the policing, we talked about that at length last night. And the only thing that really a teacher can police is the distance between students. We cannot force, coerce, shame anyone into wearing a mask, or vice versa, shame people for wearing masks. It's really, I think, Polly, I liked your phrase last night. I think that it's something we all need to adopt, whether we're in school or in public, my personal opinion. But if someone chooses to wear a mask or not wear a mask, you don't know what their personal situation is. So it should not be your position, your place to judge folks for wearing or not wearing masks. So keep your distance and mind your business, I think, was similar to the quote. Everybody is expected to be a good citizen and do what they can to mitigate the spread. And if they qualify for one of the exemptions, they qualify for one of the exemptions. And I think that's important for parents to understand that, because if that's not a comfortable learning environment for you, because you know that not everybody's going to choose to wear a mask, there are exemptions, and if we can't question it. So it's very difficult to police or enforce it. So as a parent, if you know that that's not okay for you, then maybe one of the other learning options is going to be best.
Oh, thank you so much. Extremely well communicated. I appreciate everyone's work. Thank you.
Sure.
I just had a question, comment on the air conditioning at Bucktail. I'm pleased to hear that, that was one of my main concerns when I heard the students would have to go back to school wearing masks in an 85-degree classroom, how that would be feasible. So I think that was a smart move. My next question about the airflow in the commercial buildings, such as a school, looking, going forward, maybe Rob Pacell would have more information on that, but I know it's a problem in commercial office buildings at this point. So I see a school as no different.
Sure.
With airflow and mitigation of that concern.
Yes, Eric, thanks for bringing that up. We did have some in-depth discussions about that today with Susan, Mark, Rob, and Rhonda, and I think Tracy and Wanda were there as well. Basically, we're looking at the fact that we don't have any requirements there are no forced requirements on schools right now. If that changes, we'll certainly have to address it. But right now, we have every dollar of what's been given to us so far allocated for other things, such as the air conditioning and so forth, the PPE, technology devices, and those 2 positions. So at this current time, unless we are forced to change air quality levels, we're looking at a 25% return rate on the and I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but it was in the plan specifically about the 25% airflow. And if we're forced to do something else, they're going to have to give us some more money, and we're going to need more staff to change out filters and run that equipment. So at this point in time, we're not planning to address anything different in the air quality other than providing the air conditioning and the 25% airflow.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, great questions.
Jackie, Rob, and we've been required to put 25% outside air into the rooms all along, and we continually monitor and make sure that our dampers are open, and then we are bringing in that 25% outside air. So we were kind of already doing that, and we'll continue to do that.
Wonderful. Any other questions or comments on this very, very lengthy and complicated document, or the very, very short and very understandable presentation that came before it?
No, I just want to say, I think the committee did a great job on that. I know you spent a lot of time on it, and I think you've tried to cover as many bases as you possibly can at this point. And it's kind of a moving target, to say the least, but I think you've nailed down the bulk of it. I'm just a little wondering what if we have the majority of the students decide to come back on a full-time basis. If we're going to be able, what will we do for the space requirements in the classrooms? If we have, say, like 80 or 90% of the kids opt to come back when you get your final responses.
We may have to look at if that, we're expecting 75%. And again, that was based on the original feedback. And as the responses are coming in, when it was at 100, when it was at 200 responses, 300 and so forth, the percentages are staying about the same. It's really at about 75, 74% are coming back into classrooms. So if you think about that, and the survey has been answered pretty consistently across buildings and grade levels. So what we'll be able to make adjustments to teacher schedules and support, and maybe even classroom spaces when we know exactly who's coming and what their individual schedules are. And based on the fact of who's coming back and who's not coming back, we could adjust what, the teacher's caseload for students who are, site-based and students who are learning remotely at home. And we're going to have to rely on our teachers a lot to take what they learn from the training and apply it to their individual situations, because there's really not a one-size-fits-all classroom layout that will work for everyone.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, I too want to say great job. I know we can't expect every situation, but I think we've given as many options as we possibly can at this point. And I'm sorry if we missed anything, but I can't imagine anything more comprehensive than what's already there. It's something that we can be proud of, and I think we're quite far ahead of a lot of our neighbors on this as well. I'm not hearing that
Absolutely.
any of the other regional districts are anywhere close to this. If they are, they're not making it known.
I've received a lot of compliments from some superintendents and some other officials across the state, and a lot of them are reaching out to us to get some answers and try to model some of the things that we're doing. And I think that's a great place for Keystone Central to be as a leader in the area. I did want to mention we in order to accomplish this, we broke out into some working groups, and some individuals took the lead on those groups under instruction. Megan Hall and Liz Barnhart took the lead on that. There were lots of other people involved with them, but they really took the lead on hammering out some of those issues. One part that's not in this plan, but we worked hard to do, and maybe it'll show up later as a revision, but partnerships and activities. Rolanda Murdy and Kurt Lynch took the lead on that. Lots of communication with parents, communities, and other entities in our community. Christina Manning took the lead on the wellness with the counselors and the nurses. Operations, Blesh took the lead on that. Transportation, food services, and the cleaning and sanitizing with her crew. And then Mark Kondo and Justin Evie took the lead on the safety and facilities with the temperature monitoring, the stats, safety equipment supplies, and also the training. So I just want everyone to know I'm not doing this alone. There's no possible way to do it alone. And we have an absolute epic team that has been able to bring this together in such a short time.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, next on our agenda tonight is an intensive school-based mental health program. And I'm not sure who's presenting on that.
Christina Manning is going to present on this partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Bo, do you want to share the presentation?
I can, yes.
All right, so thank you everyone for having us. I didn't do this alone, so I'm Christina Manning, Director of Pupil Services for Keystone Central School District, and my partner in this is Dr. Denise Fager, the Vice President of Operations at Crossroad Counseling. So this is pretty exciting for us that we get to partner together to create the intensive school-based mental health program. So if you want to go to the next slide, Bo. It's no secret that mental health has been an area of weakness for our district and what services that we have to offer to our students. And this is a perfect time, especially coming back from a pandemic and still being in a pandemic, to make sure that we're able to address our students' needs wherever they are. And there's many barriers right now that can prevent students from going into getting the therapeutic intensive counseling or treatment that they would need. And we really wanted to eliminate those barriers so that we can service as many of our students as possible in moving forward and making sure that they're getting the right service that they need. And the nice thing about partnering together with Crossroads in this is that, you know, they'll be in our schools, so our kiddos don't have to leave their school environment in order to get these services, which is going to be crucial for, I think, the success in them continuing with the recommended programming. We're also able to accommodate our students' needs when they come back to us from partial hospitalizations or residential placements. We have some supports in place now, but that are more behavioral related. But when our students come back from these placements who need the mental health support, oftentimes they come back right into the environment in which they were unsuccessful, and we don't really have the supports that they would need in order to practice the skills that they learned while they were in placement, or to support them to continue their growth of their own mental health needs. So with this program in place, one, we can help them transition back hopefully more successfully to us, but additionally, our goal would be to better support them prior to even needing to go to that placement in the first place, which, as you know, would save the district lots of dollars and not sending students to placements. But the first and foremost thing is then we're reaching our students where they need to be reached, and we're getting them the appropriate support that they need, and able to teach them the coping skills and give them the counseling that has been truly lacking, and not lacking maybe on the district's part, but just on the barriers. You know, how do we get them there? So by having it in the school, that's critical. And then finally, by having this partnership, it adds another layer of support for our students in our multi-tiered system of support triangle under the social emotional side. So again, it's a win-win. You know, we're wrapping up additional supports for our students, again, to remove those barriers and to allow more instruction and more access to their education to happen, because they'll be more open to it. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fager.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for letting us present this. So the intensive school-based mental health program is really unique in the opportunity that it gives us to be able to eliminate the barriers for the youth in your school district. This program will serve students ages 5 through high school graduation, and it allows us the opportunity to really meet the children, young adults where they're at. It'll be trauma-focused outpatient services. It will be a structure of group and individual, and it will go up to 30 hours a week of in-school services. So there'll be 2 staff therapists who are designated to provide mental health services across Keystone Central School District. And in essence of eliminating the barriers, those staff people will go to the schools that have the highest needs, depending on where the issues lie. In any event, if there are not as significant needs in other schools, there's an opportunity for us to be able to work in partnership across the buildings to be able to address some of the prior barriers in accessing services. Our primary goal in implementing this program was to decrease or eliminate the need for our youth to leave their school program and go to alternative educational settings outside of the district to address their mental health needs. So this will give us the opportunity to keep them in traditional learning environments, surrounded by their natural supports, addressing their academic needs, but also effectively addressing their mental health services. It will give us the opportunity to offer increased treatment for anybody who has been previously served in school-based mental health services as well. Historically, we as an agency have provided outpatient mental health services in Keystone Central School District, but we have done so in an individual capacity. This is going to give us a much more intensive alternative for our students to give us the opportunity to be able to adequately serve them. The other really great addition to this is that we'll be able to offer psychiatry through telepsychiatry in your school buildings. So there are no barriers to accessing service outside of school hours, and it will be a hybrid model that allows us the opportunity to implement academic needs and mental health needs at the same time to ensure that they can be academically successful, but also emotionally successful through their transition process. We'll also be able to step them back in levels of care. So if they start out at a higher level because of an inpatient or partial hospitalization stay, when they step back into their community, we'll be able to transition them out of services over a period of time based on their needs.
Okay, thank you. So Bo, can you go to the next slide, please? So where will this program be housed? Right now, we definitely are going to have an office set up with the telepsych services available at the high school. We are also offering to put in a second office with telepsych services also in an elementary building, and we haven't yet determined what would be the best location for that program. But regardless of where the offices are, so to speak, Crossroads has the capacity to send counselors to where the students are to meet them where they're at, to make sure that we're providing any student within the district adequate support. So if you go to the next slide, and Dr. Fager will explain how they get into the program.
So our primary focus, as I mentioned, was to eliminate barriers. So the referral process for youth coming into the program is going to be pretty seamless from our functional standpoint. The SAP teams within the schools, the student assistance programs, will help facilitate referrals, as well as the CAST program that was recently started at the end of the school year and is working to develop through the summer months. The CAST coordinator works in partnership with the academic setting and the residential or higher levels of care in mental health services to coordinate for youth in accessing services and minimizing barriers. So that CAST coordinator can make an immediate referral into the program, but this program also allows in-house guidance counselors through the SAP program, principals or teachers or anybody who's identifying a need to start that process through the SAP team or the CAST coordinator to eliminate the delays in access to treatment. A meeting would be held and treatment planning would be developed with the school professionals in partnership with the mental health professionals to ensure that we're creating a plan that addresses all of the areas of function. And then in addition to that, external sources can also make referrals. So if you have a student who's referred to a psychiatric hospitalization, they can make a referral back to this program prior to their release from a residential program to allow them the opportunity to step right into programming without any interruption in care. And we found that when we minimize the interruption of care, our students do much better in that transition from
I think you muted yourself there.
I'm sorry, I cut out for a second. I think I muted and then I hit the button. I apologize. So it gives us the opportunity to be able to minimize the separation that happens for transitioning back. We historically have referred a lot of our youth out of our community for partial hospitalization program, and the goal would be for this to be a step between outpatient and partial hospitalization for our young people.
So the next slide, Bo. So weekly progress reports on each student and on their treatment plan will be reviewed every week. How are they doing on their goals, what the barriers are, what is preventing them in being successful. And on the flip side, what is going well and why is it going well, so that we can have an accurate program. As Dr. Fager said, our ultimate goal is to always transition them out because they're meeting their goals and they're being successful with the skills that they are learning. In addition to the weekly progress report meetings, there are regularly scheduled treatment team meetings that address all of the goals, progress, concerns, strengths and areas of resilience. And that involves many team members, counselors, SAP team coordinators. Some parents can be involved in that, all of the counselors and therapists who are involved with that student. Dr. Fager, did I miss anybody who would be involved in those?
No, I think that covers everybody that would be involved in the meeting capacity. The other cool part of us monitoring with evidence-based practices in this approach is that it will allow us the opportunity to collect data associated with outcomes. And so being able to integrate the academic professionals and the mental health professionals together will allow us an opportunity to assess academic performance, mental health functioning, success in the program, and then ultimately success collectively through the academic process for our youth who are identified in terms of mental health needs. So bringing all those folks around the table are really going to allow us to collect data that we can ultimately bring back to the school district that's based in evidence-based practices in the mental health realm.
Thank you. So Bo, can you go to the next slide? This slide is fantastic because this program will not cost the district anything. It is a partnership with Crossroads where we're agreeing to come together to better serve our students of our community. So it will cost us a space. And as Ms. Martin will tell you, if we have anything, we have space. So we have adequate space to house these programs. And there is a lot of fluidity within the program, especially with the counselors being able to go to where the students are to meet their needs. So this is exciting because I feel like it is going to provide our district and our students so much benefit, and it's going to fill a huge gap that has been missing. And it's a win-win for our district, it's a win-win for our community. And we're super excited to be able to partner with Crossroads to offer this type of intensive mental health program for our students. So, Bo, if you go to the next slide, we don't have anything more to offer you unless you have any questions that we're happy to answer for you.
Any members of the board want to ask any questions?
I do. When a child's receiving these services, especially the telepsych, will the parents be required to be present? Or is it going to be on a case-by-case basis?
Our intention is to integrate parents into this process therapeutically from the time of origination. So historically, we have had very little resistance in terms of working through any of the difficulties with parents who do struggle to engage in the process, but it will ultimately be on a case-by-case basis dependent upon the mental health regulations and school guidelines associated with the student assistance program.
Okay, great. And just great job. It's way overdue, especially at the elementary level. Early intervention is key. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Again, I just wanted to say that, again, along with the plan we just heard, I think we're way ahead of the game of a lot of the other districts. I know that this is a great need to a lot of the places in our, especially in our part of the area here. I think it's just a great opportunity for us, and I'm really excited, and I think we're going to see some good results.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
So if I could add something, I'll be asking the board to approve this partnership next week. And I just wanted to let you know that this project and this partnership is completely aligned with 3 of the 5 comprehensive plan goals that we wanted to achieve. Goal number 1 was safe and supportive learning environment. We wanted to empower staff and students to cultivate safe and supportive environments conducive to learning. And as these ladies have explained, it's important to have that embedded support for students as they return to our schools. Goal number 2 was student health and wellness, and that was to ensure that all students will have access to comprehensive physical and mental health services. And by bringing those services into the school, we remove the barrier of travel, which really inhibits a lot of our students from accessing those services. And goal number 4 in our comp plan was strong relationships with families and communities. Developing trusting relationships between parents and district staff members. And the second part of that goal is to increase the number of partnerships with local organizations aligned to district priorities. So I think this completely aligns with 3 of the 5 goals. It's going to be difficult to find another partnership that does all 3. So I strongly recommend that the board consider approving this partnership.
I assume that we'll have some sort of letter of agreement or something like that in the future too.
It's really just an approval of the partnership because we don't have to have any contract. It's just a facility use part, which it does not require board approval. So the statement would be approving the partnership. I think that evidence goes along to show evidence of us meeting that comprehensive planning goal.
Okay.
And Bo, I think you have the service agreement already shared with you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any further questions?
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. This is super exciting, very much needed. And is there a possibility, or would this be appropriate, maybe once a year or twice a year? Not that we ever want any names or anything, but maybe some sort of progress report or challenges, or maybe new needs, just some feedback, something to the board. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
I think that's very appropriate for us
I
to be
would
able to
agree.
provide you with that. Yeah.
From an agency standpoint, we generally do statistical analysis quarterly, so we'd be able to present that to the board quarterly on the outcomes of the youth that are enrolled in the program, as well as the number of admissions, the success rates, and then some data tracking internally from a clinical perspective as well, if you'd be interested in that information in addition to the statistics that you may need as a school district.
Oh, that's exciting. Of course, I can't speak for everyone, but personally, that would be lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Well, if there are any other questions, I'm sure that that Mrs. Manning would be more than happy to address them offline, or if you want to speak now, that's fine. Otherwise, we're going to move on to our third item under presentations, which deals with summer youth activities. And I guess I was involved in this, so I'll present it. There was a group of folks that I tried to get together probably about a month, 2 months ago, out of a concern that that we didn't really have much in the way of organized activities for our children and youth in the Clinton County and Keystone Central area. So you know, I reached out to several contacts who I know are very busy, but when you want something done, you ask a busy person. I've learned that. And just to brainstorm and see what we could come up with. Now, I am not by any means a recreation expert or anything like that, so I simply wanted to facilitate getting the right people talking and seeing what we could come up with. And through the assistance of the Keystone Cares folks who work through the Children and Youth Office, plus some of the one of the recreation professors at Lock Haven University, one of the city council members, folks at the YMCA, and some of the service clubs came together to see what we could do. And we figured the best thing we could do would be just to make awareness of a lot of the things that are already going on that aren't necessarily well publicized. So we've got a pretty neat little calendar here of different types of summer projects that we've been able to, or programs that we've been able to find. And if my screen will scroll, whoa, it's not being kind to me. But in any case, it's broken out week by week. And some of it is things that you wouldn't even think about, like Wise Markets is offering free virtual cooking and baking camps. And there's essay contests, photo contests, there's a nature artwork contest here, and there's several weeks of all of this. There's a reading competition being held by Keystone Counseling and Way to Grow Learning Center. The information is included in the calendar. There's a rock painting event going on. There's a Clinton County Historical Society has a passport to history on the levee that you can pick up at the Heisey Museum. And, it's just a matter of, walk around, learn history, and there's a certificate of completion that would come with that. And more and more things. The Ross Library is having virtual steamers, which is a program for youth, science, technology, education, arts, and math. The Conservation District is having several informative sessions, scavenger hunts, things like that. There's a reading under the lights at Triangle Park, and I could go on and on and on about all of this. But rather than me reading all of it or anything like that, this document will be disseminated in many venues. I know that it's been sent to the media. I think the county's got it on their website. We have it attached to tonight's board agenda. I don't know if we could probably put it on the district's website as well, if we could find place. It's getting pretty busy on that main page now. We encourage everybody to take advantage of these types of activities. Granted, some of them they're virtual in nature, but I said it was my goal that that the kids in our area should have something better to do than play on their phones or Xboxes this summer, and I think that this shows that there's going on. It's just a matter of awareness. So are there any questions?
Oh, Bo, this is Elizabeth. I read through this and I was flabbergasted. And this seems like, please keep this going year after year, grow. My question, as an adult, can I participate in any of this, or is this only for students?
These are all being run by independent organizations, so I can't say yes or no to that. You'd have to contact whoever the organizer is. I don't think they'd say no.
I know the Ben V. Kiwanis is looking for more members, Elizabeth.
You guys are great. No, seriously. This is something other districts do around us on even a larger level, and having this even started here is wonderful. And
the Keystone Cares group has been meeting for a couple of years, even prior to me coming to the district, but it's really wonderful that it was able to continue in this fashion, even during the pandemic. And I think a lot of these type of things can be expanded through our community education program when we're permitted to get that back up and running again as well.
I got to give a huge shout out to Autumn and Tristan with Clinton County Children and Youth, who basically are the key people involved with Keystone Cares, at least in this effort. They really put a lot of legwork in here. Well, everybody involved with it did, with the exception of me. Like I said, I just had this crazy idea that something should happen, and sometimes when you plant those seeds, something wonderful does happen.
Oh, Bo, thank you so much. And I just have one more request. I don't know if through the CARES or the district or the Express newspaper, Record newspaper, but it would be so incredible to see little photos and little captions for all of these events posted somewhere. So people will become even more and more comfortable, and hopefully maybe next year it'll grow. So just want to put a bug in your ear. Thank you so much.
Yep, certainly appreciated. We appreciate that feedback.
Did you say, Bo, that this has been in, I haven't seen it in the newspaper or anything. I think it'd be great if they would.
The release on this just went out today. So
Okay, good. Yeah.
This was not finished last night. Literally the final version of it came out this morning.
Okay, great. Yeah, I agree with Elizabeth. This is great, and I thank you for heading that up. And I think if we can get it out into the general public, I think parents would welcome this.
I certainly hope that they do take advantage of it, and it's unfortunate that it's really only a month of activities there, but it's key time where we want our kids to be, their minds to be engaged, because they'll be coming back to school pretty soon afterwards.
Right, and then like you said, to keep them off their phones and Xboxes and then doing something different.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, well, if there's nothing else on that, we'll move into the rest of the agenda. We just spent an entire hour on presentations. Mrs. Long, did I hear there were no visitors signed up to speak?
Yes, no visitors signed up to speak.
Okay, well then, Ms. Martin, you're up for superintendent's report.
I just wanted a reminder for parents and families to fill out the Parent Choice Google form for each one of your children prior to July 30th. That helps us with planning. I've already mentioned some of this information I was planning to in the previous presentation about how we've had almost 800 respondents so far. We will continue to monitor the results and plan accordingly. On another note, there is additional public ed relief funding in the form of federal dollars through the HEROES Act, trying to get passed. The House has already passed this legislation, and I urge everyone to contact Senators Toomey and Casey and encourage them to support this bill and public education. We need more dollars. If we're going to continue to have to respond to all of the demands that are put upon us and open schools in a safe manner, we need more funding. We cannot pass those dollars needed onto the taxpayers in the form of a tax increase. So the more people that can contact the senator's office, I would really greatly appreciate it. It's going to benefit all of us. On a separate note, I wanted to talk a little bit about food services, and I believe Sharon Berger is on here this evening, and I wanted to mention, again, commend her. Our breakfast and lunch service through the closure has come to an end in June, and so with that, we've served 94,742 meals. That is quite a feat in the amount of time that we were serving those meals. And in addition to all of those meals being served, Sharon found some time to apply for some grant money. And our Food and Nutrition Service group received a $15,000 grant to support that emergency feeding program. And additionally, we were awarded some money for the Farm to School grant. And it's kind of a complex system, so I've asked Sharon to explain that grant. It's in two parts, I believe. And Sharon, anything you could explain to the board about this grant would be wonderful.
Oh, sure, no problem. I'm happy to announce as an outcome from last fall, if board members remember way back when, it seems like an eternity ago, I had asked your permission to apply for a USDA Farm to School grant. And I'm happy to announce that Keystone Central School District is one of only 3 Pennsylvania schools to receive this USDA grant award. It's for $50,000. So the grant is in two parts. Because we received the planning grant, we now qualify for applying for an implementation grant for 2021 to 2022 school year. So basically, the planning grant allows funding for Keystone Central School District to begin researching other farm to school programs. We'll be collaborating with Penn State Cooperative Extension. We're going to research and develop some relationships with the city of Lock Haven and some local farmers for how we can integrate fresh fruits and vegetables into the National School Breakfast and National School Lunch programs. So with that being said, some of the grant funding does include some curriculum pieces. Kurt Lynch and I have been working hand in hand, and he is also a part of this grant. And Kurt's piece of it is he's going to be researching to start a CTE composting program for the planning grant. And I'll be working with him to help conduct some research to develop a school-based aquaponics facility. There's a little bit of grant funding to begin rehabbing our greenhouse. Some of the panels are in need of significant repair. So I'm really excited for the grant. We'll see how far along we get in the middle of the pandemic to continue with it, but I'm still committed to it, and I'm really excited about this funding. That's pretty significant for a federal grant.
Thank you. I'm so proud of our team for taking the steps needed to acquire this and having taken the initiative to want to make things better for our students. We had some other folks apply for a grant, and we were awarded $10,000 for that will go towards professional development related to a multi-tiered system of support. I know many board members have seen me draw the graphic of a triangle, and we kind of put that triangle in different tiers. And tier 1, what are we doing for all students? Tier 2, what are we doing for some? And tier 3 is what are we doing for a few students? And in each of those tiers, we want to provide more supports, a higher degree of support. So that would be with instruction, with mental health and mental wellness, and also with behavior. So that multi-tiered system of support, getting that implemented with fidelity is going to take some professional development. And I believe, Megan, were you involved with that one?
Yes, that was a grant that came through IU10 that we applied for and just received word last week or the week before that we were one of the recipients.
Thank you. And the last thing, I just would like to urge everyone to please, please, please complete the 2020 census if you have not already done that. The more people that complete that for our community, the more benefits we'll have as a school district. And that concludes my superintendent's report for July 9th.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Martin. Any board members have any questions on any of those items for Ms. Martin?
I am super excited about this ag grant. Jeff Johnson, please don't let me forget, for our next facilities committee meeting, I have a topic I'd like to discuss. So thank you very much. Very excellent work. This is super exciting. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, while we've got Mr. Johnston on the spot, we're going to move into committee reports, and the first one up is Facilities Committee.
Okay, it was a pretty good segue there, I guess. Well, at our last meeting, which was held on June 30th, a week or so ago, we basically had 3 topics that we addressed at that time. The first one, which has been mentioned a couple different times already tonight, has been the air conditioning. That all of our buildings, with the exception of Bucktail and Liberty Curtin, currently have air conditioning in them. The middle school theirs being installed now. So with the use of I would say the largest percentage of the cost of this air conditioning project for those two buildings is going to be covered by, hopefully by some of the grant money that we got, I think through the safety security money. Whatever money that is above that will probably have to come out of our capital project budget and do some rearranging. And since that's a kind of a flexible budget anyway, we can look at that. But what we have planned is we would like to have at Bucktail, it's going to be just, since we're going to do the whole HVAC system there next year anyway, this will be kind of a temporary fix in order to get air conditioning into that building. It's going to have basically window units with some plywood, and unfortunately it won't look that great when it's just on the sides of the buildings in the back. That won't be the case in the front, but it won't look that great for a short time, for the 1 year, but it will provide us with air conditioning. The front of the building will be a little bit different. Those units will be put in a different manner. And also they're going to utilize, repurpose the chiller from the middle school that we'll be taking out to use it at Bucktail to air condition the cafeteria area. As I said, that will be a temporary, as they say at PennDOT, a temporary inconvenience for a permanent improvement when we get into the actual project of the permanent fix next year there. As far as the Liberty Curtain units, they'll be probably having to use split units up there, which will be much more of a permanent kind of a thing, which will get us through the next 3-4 years until we decide, what that building is going to be, as far as they're going to do a new structure or renovate or whatever, what we plan to do. But that will be, those units will, I think, be somewhere in the neighborhood of 40,000. And the thing that is kind of an unknown, and it's going to be the expensive part of it, will be the labor part. So like I said, that hopefully a lot of that, and then the lion's share of that, or a good bit of it, will be covered by grant funding. So the second item that we had on the agenda was the Dickey Elementary situation. We have 2 appraisals, 2 contracts from different appraisers to do that. And we do need to get 2 appraisals on the building. I believe that those contracts will be, I think, voted on next week. If I'm wrong, Susan, correct me. But they will be on the agenda next week for that. As far as the Tiger Den, David Lindsay's working with the district and the city for the transfer of the Tiger Den. I guess that the paperwork and so on that needs to be done is underway and will be taken care of. I think Mr. Elling mentioned last week he was wondering about the Jimmy Toole Memorial, the tree. And I think we've reached out to the parents, or the mother, I should say, and she was very appreciative of that. And I think what's going to be happening, and I think what they decided to do was plant the tree in as a memorial to him down in the Tiger Den, since he enjoyed playing there quite a bit as a solution to that. So that's taken care of. And the equipment, some of the equipment from Dickey is going to be earmarked to go to concession stands and some of the other buildings, the things that we can reuse. The things we can't use will be sold at auction. Hopefully that will be held in October. Also, hopefully at that time with the auction for the building as well. Third item on the agenda was Woodward Township supervisors reached out, kind of an informal preliminary meeting with a couple of the district people, and they were interested in a 100 by 300 square foot piece of land located adjacent to the Woodward building, Woodward Elementary School. And the discussion was, would we like to our district administrators or whatever to pursue that topic with them and see what, if anything, can be accomplished with that. And so it was the committee's, opinion that, yes, that we told them to go ahead and pursue that a little bit further, investigate, see what can be done, and they'll bring it back to us at the next meeting. Just a couple other odds and ends at the end of the last couple topics. As far as the projects, Mr. Pasella assures us the projects at the middle school, Robb Elementary, are going well. The turf, I believe, should be done as of now. If not, it's very close at the high school. We talked about, you will see later here in this agenda, I think it is the one of the items under business with the there's the contract for the security entrances that will be worked on at Mill Hall and Renault Elementaries. Again, that will be paid for with grant money, the masonry work on that. And I think that's pretty much it as far as the highlights of the facilities meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnston. We'll now move to Policy Committee. Mr. Koch.
Hello, Bo. A lot of mine is up ahead on the agenda under Part I, where I have 4 policies on first reading. I also talk about 3 other policies that we put on hold. Do you want me to do that now or wait until then?
Well, you could do it now. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Policy Committee met in June the 17th and also on July the 8th. A number of policies, try to take them in order here. Policy 702.1, which deals with dedication and naming of facilities. We sort of came to the conclusion that that's pretty much an administrative procedure headed by the superintendent, and anybody that's interested in naming a facility after somebody must approach the superintendent and also have a meeting with the appropriate building principals. And if all parties can come to an agreement that a facility should be named, meeting the guidelines that are in that policy, such as why it should be named, why the individual deserves to have it named after them, and so forth, then it will be brought before the board for final confirmation, I guess. But really, it's a policy that's usually carried out administratively. Policy number 805, which deals with relationships with law enforcement. The main gist of this was a change that was in the training to involve law enforcement as well as school personnel. Mark Condell, I don't know if you're there. Is there anything more elaboration on that to be done?
No, really. The biggest part is we are to include law enforcement in certain trainings that we are offering whenever we can. So that's already actually been started, but this policy sort of just puts that practice into written format, so to speak. I would also I'd like to be able to say, if it's okay with the board, I'd like to give a special thank you to all law enforcement and first responders in terms of not only just this policy, but a lot of the emergency procedures and things that we've been implementing. Now, they've been a big help in our community, and for us as a school district. So again, I just want to thank all those folks that have been involved in that process.
Okay, that will be submitted at next week's meeting on the first read. So we won't be passing it. We'll be discussing it at that point. Next is policy number 819, which deals with suicide awareness and prevention. This is a totally new policy, and that will be submitted at next week's meeting for a first read. We don't have a suicide problem per se that we actually had suicides committed, but we do have some situations in the district with students that are, kind of teetering on the edge, that could be prone to the possibility. So this is why this is being added. Policy 0006.1 is attendance at meetings. Those of us who need to attend school board meetings electronically, and especially the part had to be added dealing with the COVID-19 situation where all of us have been meeting electronically. We have to get that into policy, so that is presented here as a first read: attendance of school board members at meetings electronically under extraordinary circumstances. I guess this virus thing is a rather extraordinary circumstance. On policy number 626, which deals with fiscal matters, we put that on hold because we need more clarification from the Pennsylvania School Boards Association on that. So that was on hold. Policy number 146, which deals with trauma information and approach. We have that one on hold for more clarification. We need to do more work on that one. Policy 335, which is family medical leave, an update to the policy, the COVID-19 situation. That's on the first read. That's presented for a first read at next week's meeting. Basically, it's changing it so that teachers or any employees that take this leave, if they must use their sick leave while they're on this leave, and that will be presented in the first read. Attendance at sporting events, dealing with that's policy 904. 904 deals primarily with use of nicotine and tobacco and that sort of thing, which is strictly prohibited. But some of us have expressed concern about other behavior with COVID-19 and the wearing a mask and so forth. Is there anybody on my committee who wants to elaborate on that one a little more? Okay. And finally, policy number 832, which deals with identity equity. We have that one on hold we have more work to do on that one before we present it. And that's the summary of my report. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Koch? It's a lot of policies. Thank you for your
I just want to thank
committee's work.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank Mrs. Lynch, Mrs. Wolf, Mr. Kondo, and whoever I'm missing that was there. Mrs. Blesh was there, but this was all done electronically, so I'm not quite sure. I'm aware of everyone that was there for doing most of this work and making me look good. That's what they always do. So appreciate that very much.
Okay, thank you. Next is curricular, co-curricular committee. Mr. Probert, I believe that I'll have you do the report on that one.
Sure, Bo.
Eric, I can't hear you. Is there anyone else that can't hear Eric?
Not hearing you.
Can you hear me?
You're good.
Now I can. Thank you.
Okay. In particular, the busing of Bucktail students to Central Mountain to participate in CTC programs. It has expanded access to those programs for students at Bucktail. The block scheduling has enabled that to be a success. There was a lot of community concern over maybe students for being left out of the programs, but after the administration, including Miss Martin, the principals, and Mr. Lynch, reaching out to the students. I think they came to an understanding with the parents and students that they worked out those issues. There was a lot of discussion with Mr. Lynch about the numbers in the programs, how many are enrolled, and he discussed the different programs at the CTC. Let's see what else. The next item was the elementary after-school music program. Miss Martin talked about vacant music positions and the block scheduling. She might want to expand on this. We were able to, or she would like to explore some after-school music programs to, I don't know, Jackie, do you want to expand on that?
Sure. Basically, we have filled all of the schedules for music. We were able to do some more efficient scheduling because of the reconfiguration at the middle school and the block scheduling, and just looking at district-wide scheduling instead of scheduling by building. And because of that, we were able to pick up some capacity in our music staffing. We have 2 vacant positions. I definitely feel we need to fill one of them, absolutely positively, but I'm not sure that we need to fill the other one full-time. It may be a part-time, if at all. I have been meeting actively with Mark, some of the principals involved, as well as Cindy Middleton, our DPL, to discuss this. I want to make sure that people understand if we were to cut a music position, it's only because we found staffing efficiencies, not because we're cutting anything at all in the music program. But additionally, we'd like to look at some supplemental after-school programs for music to help build those programs. And if we can do that effectively in a cost-effective way, I think it would be an absolutely great benefit to our younger students who would maybe find a passion in music.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Then we got into some co-curricular items. We talked about the turf. I assume by now the turf is probably complete. Mr. Bidwell reported that it was close to being completed on July 1st. We also talked about the agreement with UPMC, the possibility of sponsoring the turf, and their proposal didn't come back exactly how we wanted it, and we discussed maybe getting some additional sponsors with UPMC. So we're looking into that.
Mr. Probert, we can't hear you again.
We discussed the policy and we discussed the procedures, and we had a discussion on that. That went back to the policy committee, and I think maybe Wayne touched on that earlier. We also talked about an administrative recommendation for 6th graders to participate in marching band, color guard, and majorettes. And we discussed the pros and cons of the 6th graders participating in the marching band, color guard, and majorettes. And there was some discussion, I think some music teachers were discussing that at the meeting, talking about the physical demands on those students. And I think there was going to be some more discussion with the music department. The last thing on our agenda was the cut policy that we talked about last fall with junior high basketball. We did like a pilot program with the cut policy, and according to the coaches that attended the meeting, it was a success. It worked out very well. It made their program more enjoyable for the students and parents. And we talked about maybe expanding that to other sports as needed. And we also had some discussion at the end from Mr. Bidwell about behavior at public sporting events. And I think maybe Wayne touched on that with the policy committee as well. Future agenda items. We're going to discuss the girls wrestling program. Coach Wallizer has expressed some interest in maybe discussing the future of that program. And that's all that we have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Probert. Next committee on the list is Personnel and Negotiations, which I actually am on that committee. I don't recall that we've met.
Haven't.
Tracy, do we have?
No, we haven't met since our last meeting. No.
I didn't think so. It's kind of hard to keep track of some things anyhow. And so then we'll move to Safety and Security, and that's going to be Mr. Strauss. Is there anything you can tell us?
Yes, for a change I can. Except Jackie already told everything that we did last night. So there's really not much more to say. I will say this, talking to Jackie last night, and really they've done a great job, especially when they're at the mercy of BDE, the state and federal government at any moment throwing out some new stipulation that they all of a sudden have to jump on to figure out how it will fit in. And I'm quite sure we'll see more things happen between now and September when we start school. But they've done a great job, and they're very organized, very prepared.
Randy, you did have some other conversations about police equipment, but thank you for that acknowledgement on the hard work.
Well, I picked on you enough about kindergarten, first and second grade the entire night. Just to give a fair shout out to Megan and anybody else, look out. I'm not done about kindergarten, first and second grade.
Did you want to talk about the police equipment that was discussed?
Well, Mark, I know in the past meetings, we have discussed a little bit about the tasers, and I believe Mark's going to have an estimate next month for tasers. That falls into, and Roger's actually really great at explaining this, but we're kind of in the position right now where it's either hands-on or the next step, in a sense, if it's truly violent, would be a weapon. Taser would be that middle ground where we're not having to use deadly force, so to speak. So having tasers would set us up to force, help me out, Jackie, if you can, or Mark.
Sure, you're doing great.
Force continuum, that's it. It would actually fall into force continuum. So we're going to be submitting for a rental of tasers, which Mark can explain more, and 3 batons.
Yeah, I'll be bringing that information to the board for next month. Essentially, with the passing of the recent policy, I'm trying to remember exactly when it happened, last fall maybe. Either way, we have been talking about the need for additional equipment for our officers to be able to most effectively do their job. And again, as Mr. Strauss was explaining, the force continuum, meaning that they have other options available other than, handcuff and then a firearm. So from a liability perspective for the school district, it certainly gives us the officers some additional options to use. So I'll present a little bit more detailed information for the board next month, but that's something that you'll have to consider for the officers then.
And that's pretty much it, Bo.
I'm pretty sure that the company that manufactures the Taser brand tasers, it's called Axon. I know at least for their body cameras, they're also the biggest body camera manufacturer in the world. They do a nice trial period where you can try them out with your law enforcement organization. I would imagine they probably do the same thing with their Taser product.
Yeah, they run a pretty good program, and quite honestly, I was pleasantly surprised with the price. I thought it would be a lot worse than what it is. But again, we can talk a little bit more detail at next month's meeting if that's all right.
Sounds good. All right. Well, next item on the agenda is reports. We've got the treasurer's report, financial report, and the student enrollment report. Is there any discussion on any of these items that anybody on the board would like to bring? Okay. Then section G, board. We have G1 and G2, which are both and G3 actually, which all 3 of those are to basically retain our present legal counsel that we've been working with. And I believe that they're all at the same rates that we had been paying for in the past.
So, noticeably absent is the one law firm we decided not to retain.
Correct. Is there any questions or comments on this? Okay, item G4 is performance audit. And Ms. Martin and Ms. Blesh, would you care to address that one?
Sure. So this is the performance audit that was done by the Auditor General's office. They've been with us for several months. They have asked for an exhaustive list of information. They've searched board agendas. They've dug pretty deep. And today was publicly released the report of that. I know that all the board members are fully aware of the report that because we met with the Auditor General's group to go over those pieces with you. There were 3 findings. One was in the area of transportation. Well, I guess I'll say it like this. There's bad news, there's good news, and there's better news. The bad news was there's a finding in transportation. The good news is it's in our favor, and the better news is that we'll be receiving an additional $562,000 worth of bus reimbursement that we didn't previously receive. Now, when that comes in is yet to be seen, but we'll be working on seeking that underpayment money back. There was a finding with regards to clearances for bus drivers. We've changed some procedures for that, and so that can't happen again. And the last thing had to do with MOUs. Apparently deep in the school code, it's required that we have MOUs with every police department. It was the understanding of the district that since we had our own police department and our own jurisdiction, that we didn't need those MOUs, but apparently that's not true. So as you've been approving MOUs over the last couple of months, there's 2 additional ones on the agenda for next week's approval. That will conclude all 6 of the MOUs that we need. So some red tape there. And we have a plan for rectifying all of those 3 findings, and we've already actively taken steps to rectify them as soon as they were brought to our attention. And so the second document here would be the plan for addressing those findings. Susan or Mark, do you have anything else to add to those things?
I would only add the part about the plan to rectify the issues that they found or the findings they found. I think we all learned a lot through this process, and we took steps immediately to fix anything that they told us to. And I think overall it was actually a positive experience for all that were involved. I think we took away a lot of information that we need for the future. So I think it was good.
And I'd have to just, again, sort of reiterate what Susan said, that that's the first time I've been through an audit like that. And it was eye-opening in terms of the requirements and all the things that we need to be doing. I learned a lot, I know, through that process. But either way, I think at the end of the day, like Susan said, it was a positive experience. And I think moving forward, we'll be better off for it.
I don't want to make light of anything here, because obviously going through an audit like this is a very, very serious situation. But if they can give us another $500,000, can we do it again?
5 years. We'll do it again in 5 years.
Okay. Well, obviously we'll fix the problem that caused that underpayment. But I mean, the bad news is we had some findings. The good news is they're actually kind of in our favor. So. I think we came out of this one pretty good.
Agree.
Okay, next items on the agenda are G5. That's the intensive school-based mental health services, and we already had a presentation on that tonight. This is just the action to approve the partnership for that. Any questions on that matter? I think they would probably have come up earlier. 6 and 7 are the 2 return to school plans that we need to vote on. So I'll ask, is there any comment on it? But we've I think we pretty much exhaustively went through that during presentations. The next item is G8. It's a resolution number 116, and that's to approve the recommendation that we approve the resolution. It is related to COVID-19. Ms. Martin, can you tell us what that's all about?
Sure. It's really red tape, as school code does not permit school districts to have any school days other than traditional school days to count towards their required number of days according to Chapter 4. And so the only exception to that is if there is some type of a deemed emergency, and therefore the board has to adopt this, needs to adopt this resolution in order for us to enact our remote learning solutions that we are proposing in the reopening plan. So it's, they're telling us we can do these things, but then they realized that PD realized that school code didn't allow these for these things until they found the loophole of the emergency, of such an emergency. So the resolution would allow those additional learning options in light of COVID-19.
Okay, thank you. Item number G9 is the school calendar. It's got some adjustments.
The adjustment to the school calendar would be, we would be starting our teacher, back to school day, teachers and support staff that did not work through the summer, because we have lots of people who do that. But our opening day of the school year would actually be on August 24th. Then you see on the calendar, we'd be off on the 25th. That's not a typo. And then there would be some additional in-service days. And then the 28th and the 31st would serve as the clerical days that are contractual. So the reason that we have added the 24th is because we believe that it's necessary to do some additional training for our staff prior to students coming back. And the sooner they have that information, the better they can respond and react to what they need to do in order to be ready for school to open in the fall. The reason we're off on the 25th is because we've had an outside agency planned and scheduled to come and do some train the trainer models that day, but that day would also serve as our new teacher induction day. So the activities would be done, and if teachers wish to come in, some of them are part of those trainings and others could actually have access to their classrooms, but it would not be considered a working day, nor would anyone be required to work that day. That's on that contract. We stole that day on the 24th from March 25th. So we'd like to move the 25th to a student day. And if we add that student day on March 25th, we have to take another day away somewhere. And so we felt that the best day to take away would be December 23rd, where schools would be closed a day earlier. I strongly believe that the board should make this calendar change, as we need the additional time in August for teacher training. Additionally, I think that an instructional day on March 25th will be much more productive than an instructional day on December 23rd.
Thank you. Questions or comments? All right. And finally, the last item under G is G10, and that is flexible instruction days. And that's a term that's been used by some districts in very limited amounts, but we'd like to do this too.
We would, if it's okay with you, I've created just a really quick handout. I'm going to share my screen with you. And one more click here. So flexible instructional days is a program that was developed by PDE last school year. Schools had the opportunity to apply for them. We did not. We did not feel we were ready to do that at that time. But now it's time for a new application season, and applications are due by September 1st. If we are approved, we'll know by October, sometime in October, and we would be approved for a 3-year period. And what that allows us to do is to use each of those school years up to 5 school days that could be counted towards our 180-day and hours allotment, but we would not have to do it in a traditional school format. So in general, when this was developed, it was developed for schools to be able to have school remotely through the use of technology on potentially instead of a snow day. So the idea was that the continuity of instruction would continue seamlessly instead of having a day off and then making days up at the end of the school year. We think this is a great idea. Any day that we wouldn't be having school, we wouldn't be running buses, we would save some money on some other things. So it'll be financially wise, and I think instructionally it's wise because we could seamlessly continue instruction without the disruption of snow days. What this plan looks like is we do not have it developed. We talked about it today at our directors meeting about what it would look like, but it would basically look similar to remote instruction for all students for those days. And for students who will be receiving speech, maybe or occupational therapy, if those therapies could be delivered digitally, live digital, and it's delivered, we're in compliance with the IEP, fine. If we can't, then we would have to actually have to reschedule some additional time with those students to make up the time that was lost. So those are some things that need to be accounted for in the application, along with some sample lesson plans. I have some questions based on our conversation today for the folks in charge of the application approval, and I don't have those answers yet. So what I expect to do is provide you with possibly provide you with a plan next week for board approval. In order to apply, we need board approval of the plan, and then at the following meeting, when the board approves the minutes of the approval, I need to submit both of those documentations. So not only the approval documentation, but also documentations of the minutes of the approval. So that's why we will be asking you to take a look at this next week. And one of our hesitations about the flexible instructional days was that the capacity for our staff and students and families to learn about one more new thing. And we batted it around a lot. And what we decided was, it's really not different than remote instruction, very closely related to that. And we really don't have to share too much about those plans and those details until we get a little further into the school year. So we felt that if we got the school year up and started, then we could spend some time explaining to folks what could happen. Instead of a snow day, we would be having a FID day. And it would be up to the superintendent to determine if it actually is a makeup day or if we're going to use a FID day. So more to come on that next week. We do not have all the details yet.
Okay, great. Questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to section H, which is minutes. Are there any questions or comments on any of the minutes? Hearing none. Section I, policy. Mr. Koch already went over the intent of all of these. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, item J, business. We have our normal bills for payment. Any questions or comments? We have two contracts on here, one with John Curtin and one with the Girio agency. Those are both for appraisal for the Dickey Elementary property. Questions or comments on those contracts? Hearing none. We have items number 4 and 5, they're food service and nurse supply bids. You may remember from last month that we decided to fail those particular bids because there were some requirements that maybe we didn't get the kind of responses back that we should have had. Mrs. Blesh, do you have anything more to say about that?
Nope, that's it. We put them out for bid. We received what we believe to be competitive quotes, and we're asking for your approval.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments on those two bids? Great. Hearing none, item number J6 is municipal waste removal from municipal waste compactors for Bucktail, Renovo, and Liberty Curtain. Mr. Pasella, can you comment on why this is different than what we had before?
Yeah, we're looking at putting the compactor up at Bucktail and Renova because our price of removal up there is considerably higher on I guess a per student basis, if you want to look at it that way. That was our highest cost, and then our other high one was at Liberty Curtain. We have a compactor 4 up at Bucktail. I need to purchase the hydraulic power pack for that. I'm working towards that, but it's a pretty quick return on investment for up there. And Liberty Curtain, we are looking at, I think the bid came in at $5,500 a year for the trash service there. We put a compactor in up there. We'll probably have to pull it about 4 times through the year, my guess is, depending on the size of it. And we'll be under that $1,000 mark with the tipping fees and everything. So it's considerably cheaper there. We have to come up with a compactor for there. So I'm actively searching for some used stuff that's out there to figure out where that's at, what the return is. Working on whatever we can do with these, I guess, so that we can save as much money as possible.
Oh, that's a pretty good goal. Any questions or comments on trash?
Yes, I definitely have comments. I'll be honest with you, and thank you, Rob. I understand and I totally agree. You're doing the right thing, but I don't understand the bill or the estimate that's on board docs. Some of it's highlighted yellow. Could you help me understand what I'm looking at, please?
The yellow, Liz, this is Susan. The yellow highlight is what you're awarding. So you're awarding Love's Pull for the Bucktail Renova compactor, $295, and you're awarding the Liberty Curtain compactor pool of $165. The items that are not highlighted are the other bids that were received for those areas.
Okay, so that poll is for the 2021 year, or is that just for 1 month?
It's based on we call them as it's needed. When we get to about 80% on the compactor stops working, basically. There's through a process. When it gets to 80%, it basically tells us it's getting full and we need to pull it. So we call them and they have so many hours, or they have a day or something that they have to come get the thing, dump it, and return it. The high school, we pull it about 6 times a year. We're thinking Liberty Curtain, we're going to pull it even less because there's 175 kids registered there. And at the Renova with the, I don't know, I think 300 and some odd kids there, we're not going to pull it near what we do at the Central Mountain High School. So that's a per week, or not a per week, but that's a per pool cost. And that varies based on how many times we would call them. So some of it's yet to be seen, but we know it's going to be a money saving once we get to that point.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Just to help, please consider this. When this is ever printed and shown again, I mean, maybe just a little asterisk at the bottom or something that explains that. So, because I mean, the way, if I was just looking at that, and this is no judgment call, I'm just saying, I'm trying to help everybody be as transparent as possible. If I just looked at that, to me, that would be the entire cost for the entire year. So maybe it'll just, like what you explained was so easy, so simple. If that could just be added to the bottom of the page.
Liz, it does say that at the bottom in the line item that it's awarded against, and there's multiple. Every line that says extra pool at the bottom, you'll see it says when called.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did not understand what that meant.
Yep, that's what that means. They're only charged when called.
Okay. Okay.
And we'll continue to do the recycling and monitor what they're putting in the compactor, as you asked earlier. So, I don't want everything thrown in the compactor. I want to continue the recycling program and the stuff that we are doing with that.
Thank you so much. Seriously, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on trash? Okay, well then the last item under business is a contract for St. John's Masonry. And this is to perform work at Mill Hall and Renovo. on the entryway, the secure entryways. It's not to exceed $3,890 and will be paid for by grant funding. Any questions or comments?
Bo, I just have one comment, I guess, on that. I did receive today the quotes for the security film and the actual windows that are going to go in that. So you'll probably see one additional quote from Glass Erectors next week. They just measured everything, but it's also grant funded, and we have a deadline, I think, of December 31st to get it done. But we want to award it so they can do it before the summer is up.
Sure. All right, so let's move on to item K, personnel. K1, we have really 4 items here. We have our normal personnel agenda, which is leaves of absence, job descriptions, employments, transfers, retirements, and resignations. We also have 3 job descriptions here. One is a custodian draft, and that is a result of some position consolidation, well, not position consolidation, but consolidation of job descriptions between housekeepers and custodians. So this is a revised draft of that particular job description. And then there's also the 2 job descriptions for a social worker and for a crisis counselor, as were discussed earlier during our reopening plans. Are there any questions or comments on any of these personnel items? Okay. Then we'll move into item L, and that's athletics. You'll see that there are 3 attachments there. The recommendation is to approve this. This is for employment resignations. I don't see anything else there. There's a couple coaches on there. There's no volunteers. And then we also have the list of coaches for this year for both Central Mountain and Bucktail. Any questions or comments on any of these?
I believe my comments will have to be an executive session in regards to the coaches list for the 2 schools. While we're in executive section, Bo, if you feel that what I'm saying shouldn't be an executive session, let me know. I'll stop, and then I'll say it during our next public meeting. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a couple of things here also. L2 is a donation of some tackling dummies from a local business or individual for up at Bucktail. L3 is a quote from Susquehanna Bus for athletics transportation. L4 is for hometown ticketing. This is for an online ticketing system. L5 is a quote for reconditioning of certain athletic items, such as helmets and so forth. And then L6 would be the updated return to play plan that we had already heard, but this has been more refined. So I'll throw it out there in mass. Questions or comments on any of these items?
I have a couple comments for you. The hometown ticketing system is an electronic ticketing system. It's meant to reduce the amount of time there's contact between ticket takers and attendees at events. I'm pretty sure it was part of the return to play plan as a strategy. And in the return to play plan, the update really has to deal with the governor's order and the face coverings.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment or questions?
This is Elizabeth, number L5. I don't see an actual number of the total, or at least an estimate of what the total is going to be. So maybe that could be added before our meeting, next meeting.
Well, I believe that what it has is a list of the price per item. And my guess is we don't know how many total items there are that we need to send out for reconditioning.
So I'm having a Groundhog Day here. We've Elizabeth, you had the same question last year when this came up.
Yes.
We explained exactly why there's not an exact number. It's a contract per unit, and the actual cost is dependent upon the number of units that need to be reconditioned. And so what we do know is that we've budgeted for, in the event that they all need to be reconditioned, we've budgeted effectively, and we'll stay within that budget.
But is there like a rough estimate on how many items?
No, it varies every year, depending on what equipment needs to be reconditioned and what doesn't.
I believe that matter that the coaches have to go through and along with Mr. Bidwell have to go through their equipment inventory and look and say, is this good? Is this not good? Do we need to send it back?
That's why the contract is per item, not not overall.
Okay, it just seems like, why wouldn't they look at the equipment before they, or?
Because we have to contract a rate with them before we bring them in to do the service.
Okay.
Any further question or comment on that?
Just, Bo, a quick question about the hometown ticketing.
Yes.
In reading through that agreement, tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe Jackie or someone can answer that. It looks like there's a service fee for that, for each ticket that they're going to charge. Looks like it's a certain percentage if you use a credit card, or certain percent or a certain dollar or so many cents for each ticket if you pay cash or however do it. Is that correct?
I believe the fee goes to the user of the service.
Yeah, I think it's something that's added onto the transaction in addition to our ticket price. We get the full ticket price value. They just charge the buyer a service fee for using the service.
Right. That was my question. I was assuming that there would be just like any other service fee. You pay the face value of the ticket, and then they charge you a service fee on top of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, use Ticketmaster or Live Nation or StubHub, you get the same thing for major events. So I believe that's the model.
Right. Okay. That's where I was reading it, but I wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Yep. Anything more on athletics? Okay, then we'll move to negotiations. We have two MOUs with two local police departments. One is an MOU with the Lock Haven City Police, and that is because we have a school within city limits, so that is their jurisdiction. And the other is with Woodward Township Police, because we have a school within their jurisdiction as well. I believe everything is all complete with the state police at this point, as well as Mill Hall Borough.
This is the last of the 6 MOUs that are needed.
I thought so. All right. Anything else to come before this board before we adjourn? Hearing none, I will remind members of the board that we do have an executive session scheduled immediately following this. You should all have the Zoom link. At least I hope you do. Tell me if you don't.
Bo, I'm so sorry. I couldn't, my mute button wouldn't work. I had someone request this, and I'm just sharing the information. I don't know if this would be easy to do or cumbersome, but they suggested or requested that your name would be up there, but then your title would be also. So when the person's watching this, they know who's actually speaking. Same with staff and employees. So during Zoom meetings. So that was just something that I was requested to share. That's it.
That can be done, but it's up to the individual participant to manage what their name says.
Okay. So each of us goes in there and just changes our.
Yeah, you can go change your name if you wanted to.
Okay.
Ms. Martin had a very interesting name when we first started, so it is possible.
Thank you.
I'm pretty tech savvy, but I couldn't figure out how to edit it.
That's okay.
Well, I'm glad for the super host.
Maybe we can have a tutorial on that.
All right. Well, then I'll entertain the only motion I ever entertain during a work session, and that is one to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Strauss got it. Is there a
I'll,
second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston. And without objection, we'll stand adjourned. And board members, I'll see you on the other side.